My name is Tyler Vaughn. I'm 38 years old, a bridge construction engineer, and for the last 4 years, Germany had been my entire world. I didn't leave America because I wanted to. I left because I had to. The wheels of the plane touched down at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport just before midnight. I gripped the armrests as the aircraft decelerated, my heart hammering against my ribs. For long years since I'd breathed American air. For years since I'd held my daughter Sienna in my arms. The customs line moved with agonizing slowness. Every second felt like an eternity. I kept checking my phone, staring at the last photo I had of Sienna. It was 3 months old, blurry, taken by my mother Kennedy. Sienna stood stiffly in the living room, her smile forced, her eyes somehow empty. I told myself it was just bad lighting. Bad timing. A 10-year-old girl caught off guard by her grandmother's camera. But now, standing in this fluorescent-lit airport corridor, that photo haunted me with questions I'd been too busy to ask. I hadn't told anyone I was coming home. No phone calls. No messages. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to see Sienna's face light up the way it used to when she was little, before Germany, before everything fell apart. Before Riley died. My wife. Sienna's mother. The woman I promised I'd grow old with. I can still see that hospital room. The sterile white walls. The beeping machines. Riley's hand going cold in mine, while our newborn daughter wailed in the bassinet beside us. The doctor's words were clinical, professional, empty. We did everything we could, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough when you lose someone you love. I became a single father that day, 24 years old, holding a 6-pound baby girl, with no idea how to do any of it. But I learned. I learned. I mixed formula at 3 in the morning. Changed diapers with shaking hands. Rocked Sienna to sleep while tears streamed down my face, wondering how I'd survive this. We survived together. For 6 years, it was just us. Me working construction during the day, covered in concrete dust and exhaustion. Coming home to find Sienna waiting at the window, face pressed against the glass, shouting "Daddy's home," the second my truck pulled into the driveway. Those were hard years. Money was always tight. The bills always came faster than the paychecks. But we had love. We had each other. Then the offer came from Stuttgart. A German engineering firm needed bridge construction specialists for a massive infrastructure project. The pay was triple what I made in Ohio. Triple. I stared at that contract for 3 weeks, unable to sign it, unable to throw it away. How could I leave Sienna? How could I not? Every night, I'd watch her sleep and do the math. This job could change everything. College fund, medical insurance, a real house instead of our cramped apartment, security, a future, but it meant leaving her for 4 years. For years of her childhood, I'd never get back. My parents offered to take her, Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn. They seemed like the perfect solution. They lived in a good neighborhood. Ethan was retired from the Postal Service. Kennedy had been a school secretary her whole career. They loved Sienna. At least I thought they did. I remember the day I left. Cleveland Airport. Sienna was 6 years old, clutching my leg, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Don't go, Daddy. Please don't go. I want to come with you." I knelt down and held her face in my hands. Her cheeks were wet. Her eyes were desperate. "It's only 4 years, sweetheart. Then Daddy will come back, and we'll never be apart again. I promise." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. And maybe she was right not to. I kissed her forehead, stood up, and walked toward security. I didn't look back. If I had, I never would have boarded that plane. Germany became my prison. A well-paid, purpose-driven prison. I worked 16-hour days, building suspension bridges across rivers I couldn't pronounce. I slept 4 hours a night in a cramped apartment that smelled like stale coffee and regret. Every penny I could save, I sent home. $2,500 a month. Every single month for 48 months. Sometimes I'd skip meals, live on instant noodles and coffee, just to send extra for Sienna's birthday or Christmas. I kept spreadsheets, bank records, receipts for every transfer. $120,000 over 4 years. I labeled each one clearly in the memo line. Sienna's school tuition, Sienna's clothes, Sienna's medical expenses. I wanted them to know. I wanted my parents to understand that this money wasn't for them. It was for her. All of it was for her. The video calls were my lifeline at first. Every Sunday morning, German time, I'd dial my parents' number and wait for Sienna's face to appear on screen. In the beginning, those first 6 months, she'd talk for hours. About school, about friends, about the chapter books she was reading. Her face was bright, animated, full of life. But slowly, over the months and years, those calls got shorter, quieter. By the end of the first year, she'd stare at the camera with this distant look I couldn't interpret. "How's school, baby?" I'd ask. "Fine," she'd whisper. "Are you eating well?" "Yes, Daddy." "Do you miss me?" A long pause. "Yes." But something was wrong. I felt in my bones. By the second year, the video calls became less frequent. I'd ask to talk to her more often, but my mother always had an excuse. "She's doing homework, Tyler. She's at a friend's house. She's not feeling well today. Let's try next week." By the third year, they claimed their camera was broken. Audio calls only. Sienna's voice got smaller, more timid, frightened. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I'd ask into the silence. "I'm okay, Daddy," she'd whisper, but her voice shook. By the fourth year, the calls became rare. Once a month, sometimes less. "Sienna's asleep. Sienna's busy. She has a big project due. Can we call you back?" They never called back. I believed them. God help me, I believed them. I was too far away, too busy, too desperate to think my own parents could lie to me. The photos Kennedy sent during that final year were always the same. Same angle, same room. Sienna standing awkwardly in front of the couch, her smile thin, her eyes avoiding the camera. But I noticed she looked thinner, paler, dark circles under her eyes. "She's camera shy," Kennedy would text. You know how kids are at this age, going through an awkward phase. I convinced myself it was normal. Growth, adolescence, the natural distance that forms when a father leaves his daughter for 4 years. I was wrong. I was so catastrophically wrong. The rental car smelled like chemicals and fake leather. I drove through the dark Ohio highways with my hands gripping the wheel. I got out of the car. The November air was freezing. Wind cut through my jacket like a blade. I walked up the driveway, each step heavier than the last. Something was wrong. Every instinct I had was screaming it. I reached the front door and knocked. No answer. I rang the doorbell. The chime echoed inside the empty house, mocking me. "Mom? Dad? Sienna?" My voice sounded strange, desperate. I dug into my pocket for the spare key I'd carried for 4 years like a talisman. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Stale air, mildew, dust, the scent of a place that hadn't been lived in for days. I stepped inside and flipped the light switch. The living room looked frozen in time. Dust covered the coffee table like snow. The couch cushions were undisturbed. Family photos hung on the walls, mocking me with their smiles. "Sienna?" I called louder. "Sienna, it's Daddy. I'm home." Silence. Not even the hum of a refrigerator. I moved through the house like a ghost. Kitchen, empty. Dining room, empty. I climbed the stairs. Sienna's bedroom door was closed. I pushed it open, praying she was asleep, that everything was fine, that I was overreacting. The bed was made. Cold. The sheets were stiff with disuse. No one had slept in it for weeks, maybe months. Panic seized my chest. Where was she? Where was everyone? I spun around, ready to call the police, ready to tear the city apart, looking for my daughter. That's when I heard it. A sound so faint I almost missed it. A broken, muffled sob. It was coming from below me, from the basement. My legs moved before my brain could process what was happening. I ran down the stairs, through the kitchen, toward the door that led to the basement. My heart was thundering so loud, I couldn't hear anything else. I yanked open the basement door and started down the narrow wooden steps. The air was cold, damp. The smell of mold was overwhelming. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. And then I saw it. A chain. A thick, heavy chain bolted into the concrete wall. I followed the chain with my flashlight, my breath coming in ragged gasps. At the end of it, curled into a ball on the cold floor, was my daughter, Sienna. The word ripped out of me like a scream. I ran to her and dropped to my knees. She was so small, so impossibly small. Her wrists were raw and bleeding where the metal shackle had cut into her skin. Her ribs were visible through her torn, filthy shirt. Every bone in her body stood out in sharp relief. Her face was gaunt, hollow, skin stretched tight over her skull. Bruises covered her arms in layers of purple, yellow, and green. Old injuries healing beneath new ones. Dark circles ringed her sunken eyes. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. She weighed maybe 40 pounds, maybe less. A 10-year-old child who should have weighed 70 pounds, reduced to skeletal remains. Daddy. Her voice was barely a whisper, a ghost of sound. You came back. I dropped to my knees and pulled her in my arms. She was nothing but bones wrapped in cold skin. I could feel every rib, every vertebra. Her body was ice cold, like holding a corpse. Oh God, baby, what did they do to you? She tried to speak, but couldn't. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I looked around frantically, my flashlight beam sweeping across the nightmare. Empty water bottles. 3 of them, bone dry. Scraps of moldy bread, green with fungus. Hardened crusts, so old they turned to stone. A single thin blanket covered in dirt and what looked like dry blood. This was where they'd kept her. This was where my daughter had been living while I sent money for her care. While I worked myself to exhaustion in Germany, thinking she was safe and loved. Rage exploded in my chest, white hot and consuming. But there was no time for rage. I had to get her out. I had to save her. I'm getting you out, Sienna. Hold on, sweetheart. I ran back upstairs, my legs shaking, found a crowbar in the garage, came back down. The chain was thick, industrial grade, bolted into the wall with heavy steel screws. This wasn't improvised. This was planned, installed. They'd done this deliberately. I jammed the crowbar under the bolt and pulled with everything I had. Metal groaned against concrete. My hands bled where the rough metal cut into my palms. I didn't care. I pulled harder, throwing my entire body weight into it. The bolt snapped with a sharp crack that echoed through the basement. The chain fell away. Sienna collapsed forward, and I caught her before she hit the floor. I wrapped her in my jacket and lifted her into my arms. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, like holding air, like holding a dried leaf that might crumble to dust. Hold on, baby. Just hold on. Daddy's got you. Her eyes fluttered open, barely focusing. Don't leave me again, she whispered, her voice breaking. Never. I'm never leaving you again. I swear it. I carried her up the stairs, through the house, out to the car. Every step felt like miles. My arms were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I laid her across the back seat and covered her with an old blanket I found in the trunk. Her eyes were half closed. Her breathing was shallow, labored, each breath a struggle. Sienna, look at me. Look at Daddy. Her eyes fluttered open just slightly. Those beautiful eyes I remembered were now sunken, hollow, the light almost gone from them. Stay with me, baby. We're going to hospital. You're going to be okay. Just stay with me. I slammed the car door and got behind the wheel. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life and I tore out of the driveway, tires screeching on the pavement. I drove like a madman, ran red lights, took corners too fast. The hospital was 15 minutes away. I made it in 8. Every second felt like an eternity. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, terrified that Sienna would stop breathing, that I'd lose her after finally finding her. Talk to me, Sienna. Stay awake. Tell me about something. Anything. She whispered something I couldn't hear. What, baby? What did you say? Missed you, Daddy. My vision blurred with tears. I missed you too, sweetheart. So much. We're almost there. Just hold on. The emergency entrance of Cleveland General Hospital glowed like salvation in the darkness. I screeched into the parking lot, threw the car in a park, grabbed Sienna, and ran. The automatic doors slid open. Fluorescent lights blinded me. The smell of antiseptic hit me like a wall. Help! Somebody help my daughter. I was screaming. I didn't care who heard. I didn't care how I looked. Nurses at the front desk looked up. A doctor turned from his paperwork. Their eyes went wide when they saw Sienna in my arms. Everything changed in an instant. People started running. A gurney appeared out of nowhere, wheels rattling on the tile floor. Put her down. Sir, put her down. Hands reached for her. I laid her on the gurney as gently as I could. They wheeled her away immediately, voices shouting medical terminology I didn't understand. I tried to follow, but someone grabbed my arm. Sir, you need to stay here. I looked down at my hands. They were covered in blood. Some of it was from the crowbar. Some of it was Sienna's, from where the shackle had cut her skin. My jacket was smeared with it. A man in a white coat approached me. Dr. Carter Knox, according to his badge. He was in his 50s, gray hair, sharp eyes. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't immediately read. Concern, then suspicion, then something harder. Disgust. What happened to her? His voice was cold, clinical, accusatory. I was breathing too hard to answer coherently at first. My chest was heaving. I found her. My parents' house. She was chained in the basement. Dr. Knox's eyes narrowed. Chained? Yes. I just got back from Germany. I've been gone 4 years. I came home tonight and found her like this. In her basement. Chained to the wall. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face. The way his jaw tightened. The way he looked at my bloody hands, my disheveled appearance, my wild eyes. He thought I did it. He thought I was the monster. Security, he called over his shoulder. 2 men in uniforms appeared within seconds. Sir, you need to come with us. No. I need to stay with my daughter. I need to make sure she's okay. Sir, please don't make this difficult. One of them reached for my arm. I pulled away instinctively. I didn't do this. I just found her. I'm her father. I would never hurt her. I've been in Germany for 4 years. Sir, the police are on their way. You need to wait here. The security guards positioned themselves between me and the emergency room doors. I was trapped, cornered. My daughter was somewhere beyond those doors, fighting for her life, and I couldn't get to her. I forced myself to breathe, to stay calm. If I resisted, if I fought them, it would only make things worse. They'd think I was violent, dangerous. I had to prove my innocence. Please, I said, my voice breaking. Please just check. Check my passport. I just flew in tonight. Check the entry stamp. I couldn't have done this. Officer Dylan Mercer arrived within 10 minutes, though it felt like hours. He was young, maybe 30, tall and serious with his hand resting on his belt. Are you Tyler Vaughn? Yes. You brought in the minor female? Yes. She's my daughter, Sienna. She's 10 years old. I need you to come with me, sir. He reached for handcuffs on his belt. My heart stopped. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't be arrested. Not now. Not when Sienna needed me. Wait, please. I didn't hurt her. I just got back from Germany tonight. Check my passport. Check my flight records. I couldn't have done this. I've been overseas for 4 years. Officer Mercer paused, looked at his partner, a shorter man with a thick mustache. You have your passport on you? In my jacket. Back pocket. He retrieved it carefully, treating me like a suspect, like a criminal. Flipped through the pages slowly. Stopped at the most recent stamp. Entry to the United States. Today's date. Just 12 hours ago. His expression changed subtly. The hardness softened just a fraction. You flew in tonight? Yes. From Berlin. I've been working in Germany for 4 years. I can prove it. My work contract. My boarding pass. It's all in my bag in the car. Another officer appeared then. Older, more senior. Captain Austin Blackwell. He had gray hair, a weathered face, and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. He took the passport from Mercer, examined it closely, then looked at me. Really looked at me. Not just at a suspect, but at a human being. Get his bag from the vehicle, he ordered. Officer Mercer went to my rental car and came back with my carry-on bag. I watched as they pulled out document after document. My boarding pass from Berlin to Cleveland, dated today. My German work visa, valid for 4 years, covered in entry and exit stamps. My employment contract with the engineering firm, signed 4 years ago. For years of proof that I'd been on another continent. For years of proof that I couldn't have done this to my daughter. Captain Blackwell looked at me for a long moment, studied my face. Then he nodded slowly. Remove the cuffs. Officer Mercer unlocked the handcuffs he'd just started to put on me. I rubbed my wrists, feeling the blood return to my hands. I'm sorry, Mr. Vaughn. We had to be sure, given the circumstances. I understand. But my daughter, we're investigating everything. Right now, our priority is her medical care. Dr. Knox is one of the best pediatric trauma specialists in the state. I sank into a plastic chair in the waiting room. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. The adrenaline was wearing off and exhaustion was crashing down like a wave. Captain Blackwell sat down in the chair beside me. He pulled out a small notepad and a pen. "I need you to tell me everything, Mr. Vaughn. Start from the beginning." So I did. I told him about Riley dying in childbirth, about raising Sienna alone for 6 years, about the job offer in Germany, about trusting my parents to care for her while I worked overseas, about sending $2,500 every single month for 4 years, about the video calls that started normal but became shorter, stranger, less frequent over time, about my mother's excuses, about the blurry photos, about the growing unease I felt but pushed down because they were family, about landing tonight, about coming home to surprise them, about the empty house, about hearing the sobbing from the basement, about finding Sienna chained to the wall like an animal. He wrote all down, every word. His expression remained neutral, but I saw his jaw clench when I described the chain, when I described how little Sienna weighed. "Your parents, Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn, where are they now?" "I don't know." The house was empty, completely empty, like no one had been there in days. He made a note. "We'll find them. In the meantime, I need you to not contact them. Don't call. Don't text. Don't try to reach them in any way. Let's handle this." They did this. My own parents did this to my daughter, while I was sending the money to take care of her. My voice broke. The reality was crashing down on me in waves. Captain Blackwell's expression softened. "We'll get to the bottom of it, Mr. Vaughn. I promise you that. But I need you to let us do our job. Can you do that?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good. Now, is there anyone we can call for you? Family? Friends?" "No, there's no one. It was just me and Sienna. And I thought my parents." He squeezed my shoulder briefly. "Sit tight. Someone will update you on your daughter's condition as soon as possible." Hours passed. The waiting room slowly emptied as other families were called back or sent home. I sat in that plastic chair, staring at the double door Sienna had disappeared through. The doors with the sign that read, "Authorized personnel only." Every time they opened, my heart leapt. Every time it was someone else, some other emergency, my heart sank again. At some point, someone brought me coffee in a foam cup. I didn't drink it. It sat on the table beside me, growing cold, while I stared at nothing and everything. My mind kept replaying the image of Sienna curled on that concrete floor. The chain, the bruises, how light she'd felt in my arms, how I could feel every bone. I thought about every dollar I'd sent home, every transfer I'd made religiously on the first of every month. $120,000 over 4 years. Money I'd earned by working myself to exhaustion, by sleeping 4 hours a night, by eating instant noodles so I could send more to my daughter. And they'd spend it on themselves, while she starved. Finally, as dawn was breaking outside the waiting room windows, Dr. Knox emerged through those double doors. His expression was grim, but not hopeless. I stood up so fast the chair fell over behind me. "How is she? Please tell me she's okay." "Stable. For now. She's in critical condition, but we've stabilized her." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "She's severely malnourished, dangerously dehydrated. Her body is in a state of shock. We've put her on 4 fluids and nutrients, but we have to reintroduce food very slowly or we risk refeeding syndrome." What does that mean? It means her body has been starving for so long that if we feed her too quickly, it could kill her. Her organs, her heart, they've adapted to starvation. We have to bring her back carefully. The words hit me like physical blows. "What else?" Dr. Knox consulted the tablet in his hands. "She has fractures in 2 ribs that healed incorrectly, suggesting they occurred months ago without medical treatment. Multiple lacerations on her wrists and ankles from restraints. The wounds show signs of repeated trauma over an extended period. Evidence of repeated physical abuse. Bruises in various stages of healing all over her body, which indicates ongoing, systematic violence." Each word was a knife to my heart. "Can I see her?" "She's sedated. We had to sedate her because she was in extreme distress when she woke up. She was terrified, fighting the medical staff. We couldn't treat her safely. She thought you were going to hurt her. My voice was hollow. Most likely, yes. Given what she's been through, she doesn't trust adults right now. That's a normal trauma response. I need to see her. Please. She needs to know I'm here. That she's safe now. Dr. Knox studied me for a long moment. I could see him weighing his options, his obligations. Finally, he nodded. Follow me. But Mr. Vaughn, I need to apologize to you first. For what? When I saw her injuries, I assumed the worst. I assumed you were responsible. I called the police on you. I treated you like a criminal when you just saved your daughter's life. I'm sorry. You were protecting her. That's all that matters. You did your job. Thank you for understanding. He led me through the double doors, down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear, into the intensive care unit. Sienna lay in a hospital bed that made her look even smaller than she was. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped steadily, monitoring every function of her damaged body. And 4-line ran into her arm, feeding her body the nutrients it had been denied. Her face was pale against the white pillow, so pale she looked like a ghost. Bruises stood out like accusations against her skin, purple and yellow and green, old and new layered together. Her arms were wrapped in clean white bandages where the shackles had cut deepest. I walked to her bedside slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast I might wake her, might frighten her. I took her hand carefully. It was so cold, so small, the hand of a child who should have been running and playing and living, not chained in darkness. I'm here, baby. Daddy's here. You're safe now. No one's ever going to hurt you again. I promise. Her fingers twitched slightly in mine. Just the smallest movement, but it meant everything. It meant she was alive, fighting, still here. I sat down in the chair beside her bed and didn't let go of her hand. Dr. Knox cleared his throat from the doorway. Mr. Vaughn, I need you to understand something. The physical injuries will heal. Given time and proper nutrition and care, her body will recover. But the psychological trauma she's endured, that's going to take much longer. Years, most likely. She's going to need extensive therapy, professional help, whatever she needs. I don't care what it costs. Whatever she needs to heal. Good. There's something else. The police will want a full statement when you're ready. And social services will be involved. They're required by law to investigate any case of child abuse this severe. I understand. I'll cooperate with anything they need. For what it's worth, Mr. Vaughn, I've been an emergency physician for 20 years. I've seen a lot of abuse cases. This is one of the worst I've ever encountered. Whoever did this to her, they need to be held accountable. They will be. I promise you, they will be. I stayed with Sienna through the rest of the night and into the morning. Watched her chest rise and fall with each breath. Listened to the machines beep their reassurance that she was alive, she was fighting, she was still here. Every time she moved, even slightly, I leaned forward, hoping she'd wake up. I needed to see her eyes open. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know she was going to be okay. Captain Blackwell returned around 8 in the morning with coffee and a breakfast sandwich I couldn't eat. We located your parents. My head snapped up. Where? Florida. Fort Lauderdale. They're staying at a beachfront resort. The Ocean Pearl. Premium oceanfront suite. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Florida. They're on vacation. Appears so. We've been monitoring their social media accounts. They've been posting photos for the past 3 days. Beach. Restaurants. Poolside cocktails. Looks like they're having quite the time. 3 days. They'd left Sienna chained in that basement and gone to Florida 3 days ago, which meant she'd been alone, in the dark, with minimal food and water for 72 hours. If I'd waited even one more day to come home, she'd be dead. I want to be there when you arrest them. I understand the impulse, Mr. Vaughn, but you need to let us handle this professionally. If you confront them, if there's any physical altercation, it could compromise the case. Defense attorneys would use it. I need you to trust me. I wanted to argue. I wanted to get on a plane to Florida right now and drag them back myself. I wanted to look them in the eye and ask them how they could do this. But he was right. I couldn't risk this. I needed them behind bars. I needed justice for Sienna. What do you need from me? Your bank records. every transfer you made to them over the past 4 years. We'll need to trace where that money actually went. I have everything. I kept copies of every transaction, spreadsheets, receipts, everything. Good man. We'll also need to interview neighbors, teachers, anyone who might have seen something or heard something during the time you were overseas. I'll help with whatever you need. Over the next 2 days, while Sienna remained unconscious in the ICU, I became an investigator. When she was sleeping peacefully and the nurses assured me there was no change, I drove back to my parents' house. The house I'd grown up in. The house that had seemed so safe and normal and boring. Now it was a crime scene. I took photos of everything with my phone. The basement first. The chain still bolted to the wall, one end broken where I'd shattered the lock with a crowbar. The cold concrete floor, stained with dried blood where the shackle had cut into Sienna's ankle. The moldy bread, the empty water bottles, the filthy blanket. I photographed every angle, every detail, made sure the lighting was good, that everything was clear and undeniable. This was evidence, proof of what they'd done. Then I went upstairs to Sienna's bedroom, the room that should have been hers. It was like a museum, untouched. The bed was made with corners so tight you could bounce a quarter off them. Dust covered every surface. The closet held a few items of clothing, all too small, all years out of date. She hadn't slept in this room in a very long time, maybe years. Then I went into my parents' bedroom. Well, I found they made my blood boil hot enough to burn. Shopping receipts, dozens of them, scattered across the dresser, stuffed in drawers, crumpled in the trash can. Gucci, Prada, Rolex, Louis Vuitton, designer brands I couldn't even pronounce. Luxury hotels, airline tickets, casino chips. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Pulled up my transfer history. Started cross-referencing dates. March 15th, 4 years ago, I sent $2,500. Memo, Sienna spring tuition and new clothes. March 16th, 4 years ago, receipt for a Gucci handbag, $2,200. June 3rd, 3 years ago, I sent $3,000. Memo, Sienna summer camp, dental work, and school supplies. June 4th, 3 years ago, receipt for a weekend in Las Vegas. First-class flights for 2. 5-star hotel. Spa treatments. Total, $2,800. I photographed every receipt. Then I photographed my phone screen showing my bank transfers right next to each receipt. Side by side. Dated proof that every dollar I sent for my daughter's care went straight into their pockets for luxuries. I found credit card statements next. They told an even darker story. Massive gambling debts, cash advances at casinos, payday loans from predatory lenders with interest rates that should be illegal. My parents had been drowning financially, and they'd used my daughter's money to stay afloat, to fund their addictions and their lifestyle, while letting her starve in their basement. But even $120,000 over 4 years wasn't enough to sustain the lifestyle they were living. The math didn't add up. I dug deeper and found more documents. Home equity loans, second mortgages, loans against their car. They'd leveraged everything. My money wasn't funding their lifestyle. It was barely covering their debts. They were drowning, and instead of changing their behavior, they'd taken it out on an innocent child. On my daughter. I took everything to Captain Blackwell. Spread the documents across his desk in the police station conference room. He looked through them methodically, his expression growing darker with each page. This is damning evidence, Mr. Vaughn. It gets worse. I'm going to talk to the neighbors. See what they know. Be careful. Don't lead them or coach them in any way. Just ask open-ended questions about what they saw or heard. Their statements need to be genuine to hold up in court. Understand? I knocked on every door on that street. The street I'd played on as a kid. The neighbors who'd known me my whole life. Mrs. Paige Holloway lived next door. She was elderly, maybe 75, walked with a cane, and looked deeply uncomfortable when she opened the door and saw me. Tyler, I heard you were back. I'm so sorry about your little girl. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. Can I ask you something? Did you ever see or hear anything unusual coming from my parents' house while I was overseas? She looked away, her weathered hands gripping her cane tighter. I don't like to get involved in other people's business. Please, this is about my daughter. About Sienna. I need to know what happened while I was gone. She was quiet for a long moment. I could see the guilt and shame warring on her face. Finally, she sighed, a deep shuddering sound. I heard screaming sometimes. Late at night, a child screaming. It was awful. Made my blood run cold. But I thought maybe it was discipline, you know. Old-fashioned parenting. My generation, we got the belt sometimes, and we turned out fine. Did you ever see anything? Once. I was in my backyard watering my tomatoes. It was summer, maybe 2 years ago. Your father was in his yard with the little girl. Sienna. She dropped something. A glass of water, I think. It shattered on the patio. He went red in the face. Started yelling. Then he took off his belt and hit her with it. Hard. Multiple times. She fell down crying. Your mother just watched from the porch. Didn't say a word. Didn't stop him. And you didn't call anyone? The question came out harsher than I intended. Mrs. Holloway's eyes filled with tears. I almost called 911 that day. Had my phone in my hand. But then your father saw me watching over the fence. He came over and explained. Said Sienna had behavioral problems. That she was destructive and defiant. That you'd given them permission to discipline her as they saw fit. He was so convincing. So calm. Made me feel like I'd overreacted. I put the phone away. She started crying. I should have called anyway. I know that now. That poor baby. I'm so sorry, Tyler. I'm so sorry I didn't do more. I recorded every word with her permission. Thanked her even though I wanted to scream. She'd heard my daughter screaming. Seen her being beaten. And did nothing. I moved to the next house. Mr. Kayla Monroe. Middle-aged. Worked from home, doing something with computers. Sure, I remember seeing the kid. Sienna, right? Small girl, dark hair. She used to do odd things. What kind of things? She'd carry these heavy buckets from the house to the basement window well. Water, I think. Maybe food. Always looked exhausted. Struggled with the weight. I asked her once if she needed help. She looked absolutely terrified. Dropped the bucket and ran inside. After that, I figured she was just a weird, shy kid. Did she seem okay to you? Healthy. He shifted uncomfortably. Honestly? No. She looked too thin. Always wore long sleeves, even in summer, which I thought was strange. Looked scared all the time. Nervous. Like a little rabbit about to bolt. But I didn't want to assume anything. Didn't want to be that neighbor who causes problems over nothing. Mrs. Avery Collins, 2 houses down, was more direct. She was younger, maybe 40, with kind eyes that held deep regret. I knew something was wrong. I should have done more. What did you see? I saw bruises on that little girl's arms and legs. Multiple times. At the bus stop in the mornings when she'd wait for the school bus. She always wore long sleeves, but sometimes they'd ride up and I'd see the marks. Fingerprints. Belt marks. Once I saw what looked like burns. I asked her one morning if she was okay. She opened her mouth to answer, and your father appeared out of nowhere. Came running down the driveway. Grabbed her arm rough enough to make her wince and dragged her back to the house. She never came to the bus stop again after that. What do you mean she never came back? She had to get to school somehow. I don't know. I never saw her again. Maybe they drove her. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Why didn't you call Child Protective Services? She started crying. I should have. God, I should have. But your parents were always so nice to me. Kennedy brought me cookies when I was sick. Ethan helped me fix my fence once. I didn't want to cause trouble. I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe the bruises were from playing rough or sports or something innocent. I convinced myself it wasn't my business. Her voice broke. But I knew. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. And I did nothing. I have to live with that. I recorded all of it. Every painful admission. Every expression of guilt. The neighborhood had failed my daughter. Everyone had seen pieces of a horror, and no one had connected the dots or cared enough to act. I had one more call to make. I dialed Sienna's school and asked to speak to her teacher. Mississippi Harper Lane answered on the second ring. Riverside Elementary, Mississippi Lane speaking. Mississippi Lane, this is Tyler Vaughn. Sienna's father. Oh, Mr. Vaughn. I've been so worried about Sienna. How is she? I heard she was in the hospital. She's alive. Barely. Mississippi Lane, I need to ask you something. Did you notice anything wrong? Any signs of abuse or neglect? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. Mr. Vaughn, I filed 3 reports with the school administration over the past 2 years. 3 separate reports detailing my concerns about Sienna. What kind of concerns? Everything. Her grades dropped dramatically from A's and B's to D's and F's. She fell asleep in class constantly. Not just tired, but completely exhausted. She put her head down and be unconscious in seconds. She flinched whenever someone raised their voice or moved too quickly. She never had lunch. When I asked her about it, she said she wasn't hungry, but I could hear her stomach growling across the classroom. What happened to the reports? They were sent to the district office. I was told someone would follow up. No one ever did. So I called Child Protective Services myself. Twice. I'm a mandatory reporter. When the school didn't act, I had to. And they said they'd send someone to investigate. I gave them your parents' address, described what I was seeing. They said it would be handled. But nothing changed. Sienna kept coming to school exhausted and hungry. Then about a year ago, she stopped coming to school altogether. What do you mean she stopped coming? She was withdrawn. Your parents submitted paperwork saying they were homeschooling her. I tried to fight it, tried to argue that we needed to verify her well-being, but I was told it was their legal right to homeschool. I should have pushed harder. I should have shown up at the house. I should have done something more. She was openly sobbing now. Mr. Vaughn, I'm so sorry. I failed your daughter. I saw what was happening, and I didn't do enough to stop it. You tried, Mississippi Lane. You did more than most. The system failed her. Not you. But even as I said it, I felt the weight of all these failures. The neighbors who heard screaming and did nothing. The teacher who reported abuse and was ignored. The CPS workers who never followed up. The school administrators who accepted a homeschooling claim without verification. The entire system had failed to protect one small child. And I'd been 3,000 miles away, trusting that same system to keep her safe. I have my evidence now. Overwhelming, undeniable evidence. I spent the evening organizing everything into a comprehensive file. Photos of the basement, neighbor testimonies, recorded and transcribed, teacher statements, my bank records showing every transfer, their receipts showing every luxury purchase, medical records from the hospital detailing Sienna's injuries. Everything neatly documented, cross-referenced, impossible to deny. The next morning, Captain Blackwell called. They're flying back today, landing at Cleveland Hopkins at 2 p.m. We're going to let them go home, let them think everything is normal. Then we'll move in. I want to be there. Tyler, I need to see their faces. I need to look them in the eye. Please. He was quiet for a moment. Be at the house at 4 p.m. Park down the street. Stay in your car until we give you the signal. And Tyler, no matter what happens, you let us handle it. Understood. Understood. I spent the rest of the morning with Sienna. She'd woken up briefly the night before, opened her eyes and looked at me with recognition and relief before falling back into exhausted sleep. Now she was awake again, more alert, watching me with those big eyes that had seen too much. Daddy, her voice was still weak, but stronger than before. Hey, baby, how are you feeling? My stomach hurts. They said I can't eat yet. Not real food. I know, sweetheart. Your body needs time to adjust. But soon you'll be able to eat whatever you want. I promise. Where are they? Grandma and Grandpa. The fear in her voice when she said their names broke my heart. They can't hurt you anymore, Sienna. They're going away. Far away. They're never going to touch you again. Are they going to jail? Yes, baby. They are. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Not sad tears. Relief. Good. I was so scared, Daddy. Every day I was so scared. I know. I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you. You came back. That's what matters. You came back and you saved me. I held her hand until she fell back asleep. Then I kissed her forehead and left for my parents' house. At 4 p.m., I was parked 3 houses down from 847 Maple Street. The house I'd grown up in. The house that now represented everything evil in the world. 2 unmarked police cars were positioned nearby. Officers in plain clothes pretending to be joggers, dog walkers, normal people. At 4:30, a taxi pulled up to the house. I watched as Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn got out. They looked tanned, relaxed, happy. Ethan wore an expensive polo shirt I didn't recognize. Kennedy had new jewelry glittering on her wrists and neck. They were laughing about something as they pulled designer luggage from the taxi trunk. Actually laughing. My hands clenched into fists on the steering wheel. They paid the driver and walked to the front door. Ethan unlocked it and they went inside, still talking, still smiling, completely oblivious to what was coming. Captain Blackwell's voice came through the radio he'd given me. 30 seconds. Stay in the vehicle until we secure them. I watched as officers moved into position, surrounding the house, blocking exits. Professional. Efficient. 30 seconds later, Captain Blackwell knocked on the front door. Hard. Official. Ethan opened it. The smile was still on his face. It died the second he saw the police. What's going on? Ethan Vaughn. Yes. You're under arrest for child abuse, unlawful imprisonment, and financial exploitation of a minor. Captain Blackwell's voice was cold and official. What? This is insane. We didn't do anything. Officer Mercer pushed past him into the house. Kennedy Vaughn. Kennedy appeared from the living room, face pale. Yes. You're also under arrest. No, this is a mistake. Her voice rose to a panicked screech. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Ethan tried to run. He actually tried to bolt out the back door like a coward. 2 officers tackled him in the kitchen before he made it 3 steps. He hit the floor hard, the air knocked out of him, still struggling and cursing. They cuffed him while he screamed about his rights, about false accusations, about lawyers. Kennedy collapsed to her knees in the living room, sobbing hysterically. Please, we can explain. This is all a misunderstanding. Captain Blackwell's radio crackled. House is secure. Bring him in. That was my signal. I got out of the car and walked toward the house. My legs felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. Neighbors were gathering now, coming out of their houses. Phones out, recording everything. Mrs. Holloway stood on her porch with her hand over her mouth. Mr. Monroe was shaking his head. The whole street was watching the Vaughn family implode. I walked through the front door. Ethan and Kennedy were both in handcuffs now, both being read their rights. They saw me, and everything changed. Ethan's face went from red to white. Tyler, what are you doing here? What is this? I walked up to him slowly, looked him dead in the eye. You chained my daughter in your basement. You starved her, beat her, spent the money I sent for her care on vacations and designer handbags while she was dying in the dark. We took care of her. We did our best. She was difficult, ungrateful. She weighed 40 pounds when I found her. 40 pounds. She's 10 years old. She should weigh 70. My mother was sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. Just kept shaking her head, mascara running down her face in black rivers. How could you? My voice broke. I trusted you. I sent you $120,000 over 4 years. Every penny I could spare. I worked myself to death in Germany thinking my daughter was safe and loved. And you chained her like an animal. Ethan's face twisted with rage. That money was ours. You owed us for raising you, for taking you in when no one else wanted you. I was your son. You were never my son. The words hit like a physical blow. Kennedy looked at him in shock. Ethan, don't. Why not? He deserves to know the truth. You're not my son, Tyler. You never were. And that girl isn't my granddaughter. You're no blood of mine. Captain Blackwell stepped between us. That's enough. Get them out of here. Officers led them outside. Ethan was still shouting, still spewing venom. Kennedy was silent now, head down, defeated. Neighbors watched in shocked silence as they were put into separate patrol cars. The doors slammed shut. Sirens wailed. And just like that, they were gone. I stood in the driveway as the cars disappeared, watching until even the sound of sirens faded. Mrs. Holloway approached slowly. Tyler, I'm so sorry. If I'd known, if I'd understood. You heard my daughter screaming, and you did nothing. My voice was flat, empty. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're right. There's no excuse. I failed her. We all did. Mr. Monroe and Mrs. Collins stood nearby, both crying, both carrying the weight of their inaction. I couldn't look at them, couldn't forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Captain Blackwell put a hand on my shoulder. We've got them. The evidence you gathered is ironclad. They're not getting out of this. What happens now? They'll be processed, arraigned. Bond will be set, but given the severity, I expect they'll be remanded without bail. The district attorney will be in touch. This is going to trial. How long? Depends on if they fight it or take a plea. Could be months. But Tyler, they're done. They're going to prison for a long time. I nodded numbly. It was over. Or at least this part was. The arrest. The confrontation. But the real fight was just beginning. Getting justice. Helping Sienna heal. Finding out what Ethan meant when he said, I wasn't his son. The weeks leading up to the trial were the hardest of my life in a different way than the years in Germany had been. Sienna came home from the hospital after 2 weeks. She'd gained 8 pounds, still dangerously underweight, but improving. The doctors had rules. Strict rules about diet, about rest, about not pushing her too hard too fast. We couldn't go back to my parents' house. Even driving past, it made Sienna start shaking. So I rented a small apartment across town in a different school district. 2 bedrooms. Clean. Bright. Nothing like that basement. I painted Sienna's room myself. Let her pick the color. She chose yellow. Like sunshine, she said quietly. So it's never dark. We started therapy immediately with Dr. Melody Harper, a specialist in childhood trauma who came highly recommended by the hospital. Twice a week, Sienna sat in that office and slowly, painfully began to talk about what had happened to her. I wasn't allowed in the sessions. She needs a safe space separate from you, Dr. Harper explained. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because she needs to process this independently before she can share it with you. After each session, Dr. Harper would brief me in general terms. The details she couldn't share due to patient confidentiality, but the themes she could. She's carrying enormous guilt, Dr. Harper told me after the 3rd session. She believed she deserved the punishment. The words hit me like a truck. How? How could she think that? Children, especially young children, believe the world is just. When bad things happen to them, they assume they must have caused it. Must have been bad or wrong somehow. It's a protective mechanism. If they caused it, then they can prevent it by being better. It gives them a sense of control. But she didn't cause anything. She was innocent. You know that. I know that. But Sienna's mind is still processing years of being told she was bad, that she deserved this, that her father abandoned her because she wasn't good enough. Those lies were told to her every single day. They're deeply embedded now. How do I help her understand the truth? Time, patience, consistency. You have to show her through your actions, not just words, that she's safe now, that she's loved unconditionally, that nothing she could ever do would warrant what happened to her. It's going to take years, Tyler. I won't lie to you. This kind of trauma doesn't heal quickly. I threw myself into being the father she needed. Made her breakfast every morning. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. Sat with her while she ate, even though it was hard for her. Her stomach had shrunk. She could only eat small amounts. Just a few more bites, baby. You're doing great. Drove her to therapy twice a week. Waited in the lobby reading magazines I didn't absorb, just waiting for her to emerge. She always looked exhausted after sessions. Sometimes she'd been crying. I'd hold her hand, and we'd drive home in silence. I never pushed her to talk about it. Let her come to me when she was ready. Slowly, bit by bit, she started opening up. One night, about a month after we'd moved into the apartment, she came into the living room where I was reading. Daddy, can I ask you something? Of course, baby. Anything. Why do they hate me so much? The question tore my heart out. Oh, Sienna, they didn't hate you. What they did, it wasn't about you. It was about them, about their problems and their issues and their cruelty. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. You were perfect. You were perfect. But they said I was bad, that I was ungrateful and spoiled, and that's why you left me with them. I didn't leave you because you were bad. I left because I thought I was giving you a better future. I thought if I worked hard and sent money home, you could have things I never had. College, security, a real future. I trusted the wrong people. That's on me, not you. Do you wish you'd never had me? That mom had lived instead. The question hit me like a lightning bolt. What? No. Sienna, no. I love you more than anything in this world. Losing your mom was the worst day of my life until I found you in that basement. But you're the reason I kept going. The reason I survived. I would do anything for you. Anything. She started crying. I pulled her into my arms and held her while she sobbed. I thought maybe if I'd been better, been quieter, been perfect, they would have been nice to me. That you would have come home sooner. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? Not one single part of this is your fault. You were a child, a little girl who deserved love and protection. They failed you. I failed you. But you did nothing wrong. Prosecutor Savannah Cole came to our apartment 6 weeks after the arrest. She was in her mid-40s, sharp and professional with kind eyes that had probably seen every horror imaginable. "Mr. Vaughn, thank you for meeting with me. And you must be Sienna." Sienna hid behind me. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm going to be asking you some questions in court. Sienna, is that okay?" Sienna looked at me. I nodded encouragingly. "Okay," she said quietly. Savannah sat down on the couch. "I know this is going to be hard, but I need you to tell the truth about what happened while you lived with your grandparents. Can you do that for me?" "Will they be there?" "In the courtroom?" "Yes, but they can't hurt you. They'll be across the room, behind a table, with guards watching them. Your dad will be there with you. The judge will be there, and lots of people whose job is to keep you safe. What if I mess up? What if I forget something or say it wrong?" "You can't mess up, sweetheart. Just tell what happened in your own words. That's all anyone needs." After Savannah left, Sienna asked me, "Do I have to do this? Do I have to talk in front of them?" I knelt down, so I was at her eye level. "Yes, baby. I know it's scary. I know you don't want to see them again. But these people need to be punished for what they did to you. And the only way that happens is if you're brave enough to tell your story. What if no one believes me? Everyone will believe you. I promise. The evidence is overwhelming. The medical reports, the photos, the neighbor testimonies, everything proves what they did. But your voice is the most important piece. You're the only one who can tell the jury what it was like, what you went through. I don't want to remember it. I know. But Dr. Harper says sometimes we have to remember the bad things so we can move past them. So they don't have power over us anymore." She thought about that, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. For you. No, sweetheart. Do it for yourself. So you can heal. So they can never hurt anyone else ever again." The trial was scheduled for 8 weeks after the arrest. The media coverage was intense. Local news picked up the story first. Grandparents arrested for imprisoning granddaughter. Then it went regional, national. The details were too horrifying, too sensational not to spread. Cable news ran segments. Talking heads debated how this could happen, how a system could fail so completely. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. I ignored all of them. This wasn't about publicity. This was about justice for Sienna. The day before the trial, I sat Sienna down. "Tomorrow is going to be hard. Probably the hardest day you've had since I found you. But I'll be right there with you the entire time. And when it's over, they'll go to prison. They'll never be able to hurt you or anyone else again. Well, I have to look at them. You'll have to be in the same room. But you don't have to look at them if you don't want to. You can look at me instead, or at the prosecutor, or at the judge, wherever makes you feel safe. I'm scared. I know, baby. But you're the bravest person I know. You survived 4 years of hell. You can survive one day in court." The morning of the trial, I dressed Sienna in a simple dress we'd bought together. Nothing fancy, just a normal dress a normal 10-year-old might wear. Pulled her hair back gently. She looked in the mirror and started crying. "I look so different from before, from when you left." She was right. The Sienna I'd left 4 years ago was healthy, round-faced, bright-eyed. This Sienna was thin, with hollows in her cheeks, shadows under her eyes. Still beautiful, but marked by suffering. You're still you. Still my brave, beautiful girl. The outside doesn't matter. What matters is you're still here. You survived. We drove to the courthouse in silence. The building was swarmed with media. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. I picked Sienna up and carried her through the crowd, using my body to shield her from the cameras. Captain Blackwell met us at the side entrance. "This way. We'll avoid the worst of it." Inside, the courthouse was quieter but still bustling. People in suits rushing past. Lawyers with briefcases. Families waiting for their own cases to be heard. We were led to a private waiting room. Savannah was already there. "Good morning. How are you feeling, Sienna?" "Scared. That's normal. But remember, you're safe. No one can hurt you here." At 10 a.m. sharp, we were called into the courtroom. The room was massive. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, rows of benches packed with spectators, journalists, curious onlookers drawn by the horrific details. At the front of a room sat Judge Margaret Shun, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and was impressed by none of it. We took our seats on the prosecution side, and then they were brought in. Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn in orange jumpsuits, shackled at the wrists and ankles. They looked smaller somehow, older, less powerful than I remembered. Ethan's hair had gone completely white in the 8 weeks since his arrest. Kennedy had aged a decade, her face haggard and drawn. They were led to the defense table and sat down. Kennedy was already crying. Ethan stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Sienna grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. I looked down at her. She was shaking. "You're okay. I'm right here." Judge Chun banged her gavel. "All rise. Court is now in session." Everyone stood. "Be seated." She looked around the courtroom with those sharp eyes. "We're here for the trial of Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn on multiple counts of child abuse in the first degree, unlawful imprisonment, and financial exploitation of a minor. This court will conduct itself with decorum and respect. Any outburst will result in immediate removal." "Understood." Everyone nodded. "Prosecution, your opening statement." Savannah Cole stood. She was calm, confident, in complete control. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is about betrayal, the worst kind of betrayal imaginable. Tyler Vaughn loved his parents. He trusted them completely. When he had to leave the country for work, he entrusted them with the most precious thing in his world, his daughter, Sienna. She was 6 years old. She walked toward the jury box slowly. Tyler sent $2,500 every single month for 4 years. $120,000 total. Money he earned through 16-hour workdays building bridges in Germany. Money he sent home religiously, never missing a payment, because he loved his daughter and wanted her to have everything she needed. She paused for effect. Not one penny of that money went to Sienna's care. She walked to the evidence table and picked up 2 photographs. One showed Sienna at age 6. Healthy, smiling, bright-eyed. The second showed Sienna at age 10. Skeletal, bruised, broken. The jury gasped audibly. One woman covered her mouth. A man closed his eyes. This is what betrayal looks like. This is what systematic torture and neglect looks like. The defendants chained Sienna Vaughn in their basement, fed her moldy bread and minimal water, beat her with belts, isolated her from the world. And when Tyler sent money for her tuition, her clothes, her medical care, they spent it on Gucci handbags, Rolex watches, and luxury vacations. She held up receipt after receipt, placed them on the evidence board one by one. The jury's expressions hardened with each one. The evidence will show through medical records, photographic documentation, financial records, and eyewitness testimony that the defendants systematically abused and exploited a child for years, while her father worked himself to exhaustion, believing she was safe. They showed no remorse, no mercy. They deserve none in return. She sat down. The courtroom was dead silent. Then the defense attorney stood. Jackson Reed. He was young, maybe early 30s, and he looked deeply uncomfortable. Probably a public defender assigned to a case no one wanted. "Your Honor, members of the jury, my clients are elderly. They're in their late 60s. Caring for a child at that age is challenging. They made mistakes, serious mistakes that they deeply regret, but they were overwhelmed. They didn't have the resources or the support they needed." Judge Chin's expression could have frozen hell. "Mr. Reed, are you seriously arguing that being elderly justifies chaining a child in a basement?" "No, Your Honor. I'm simply providing context for context." Savannah stood. "Your Honor, I object. Being elderly is not a defense for torture." Sustained. "Mr. Reed, if that's the best you have, I suggest you sit down and save it for sentencing if there's a conviction." Jackson Reed sat down quickly, face red. He'd clearly realized how impossible his job was. Judge Chin looked at the prosecution. "Call your first witness." The prosecution calls Dr. Carter Knox. Dr. Knox took the stand and was sworn in. He sat down and looked at the jury with the calm authority of someone who'd testified in court many times. Savannah approached. "Dr. Knox, you're a pediatric emergency physician at Cleveland General Hospital, correct?" "Yes, for 22 years. And you treated Sienna Vaughn when she was brought in by her father on November 8th? "I did." Can you describe her condition when she arrived? Dr. Knox looked at his notes, though I suspected he didn't need them. He probably remembered Sienna in perfect detail. She was in critical condition, severely malnourished to the point of starvation. Her body weight was approximately 40 pounds, when a healthy 10-year-old girl should weigh between 70 and 75 pounds. She was dangerously dehydrated. Her vital signs were unstable. What else did you observe? She had fractures in 2 ribs that had healed improperly, suggesting they occurred months earlier without medical treatment. Multiple lacerations on her wrists and ankles consistent with prolonged restraint by metal shackles. The wounds showed signs of repeated trauma over an extended period, with scar tissue beneath fresh injuries. What does that tell you? It tells me this wasn't a one-time incident. This was ongoing, systematic abuse lasting months or years. What else? Bruises in various stages of healing all over her body. Purple, yellow, green. Old injuries healing beneath new ones. Patterned bruises consistent with being struck with a belt or similar object. Signs of psychological trauma, including extreme fear response, dissociation, and inability to trust medical staff. He paused. In my 22 years of emergency medicine, this is one of the most severe cases of child abuse I've ever encountered. The jury looked sick. Several were crying silently. Savannah showed medical photographs, close-ups of Sienna's injuries. The courtroom fell into horrified silence. Dr. Knox, in your professional opinion, if Tyler Vaughn had waited even a few more days to return home, what would have happened? Sienna would have died. Her body was at the edge of organ failure. Another 48 to 72 hours without intervention, and we wouldn't have been able to save her. Savannah, let that sink in. No further questions. Jackson Reed approached for cross-examination. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dr. Knox, is it possible these injuries were accidental? Perhaps from rough play or sports? Dr. Knox looked at him like he'd grown a second head. A chain bolted to a basement wall is not an accident. Systematic starvation is not rough play. These injuries were deliberately inflicted. No further questions. He sat down quickly. The rest of the morning proceeded with witness after witness. Captain Blackwell testified about the investigation. Officer Mercer described the arrest. Each built the case higher and higher until it was an insurmountable wall of evidence. Then came the neighbors. Mrs. Paige Holloway took the stand, walking slowly with her cane. She looked at Ethan and Kennedy with something like hatred before sitting down. Mrs. Holloway, you live next door to the Vaughn residence? Yes, for 35 years. Did you ever hear or see anything unusual during the time Sienna lived there? She took a deep breath. I heard screaming. Late at night. A child screaming in terror. It made my blood run cold. I heard it multiple times over the past few years. Did you ever see anything? Once. Summer, about 2 years ago. I was in my backyard. Ethan was in his yard with Sienna. She dropped a glass of water. It shattered. He took off his belt and hit her with it. Multiple times. She fell down crying. Kennedy watched from the porch and did nothing. Why didn't you call the police? She started crying. He came over afterward. Told me Sienna had behavioral problems. That they had permission from Tyler to discipline her. He was so convincing. I believed him. I should have called anyway. I should have trusted my instincts. I failed that little girl. Mr. Caleb Monroe testified next. Described seeing Sienna carrying heavy buckets, looking exhausted and terrified. Mrs. Avery Collins described the bruises, the way Ethan dragged Sienna inside when she tried to talk. Each testimony painted a picture of a neighborhood that saw evil happening and did nothing. Then, Mississippi Harper Lane was called. She was crying before she even reached the stand. Mississippi Lane, you were Sienna's teacher at Riverside Elementary? Yes, for 2nd and 3rd grade, before they withdrew her. What did you observe during that time? Everything wrong. Sienna's grades dropped from A's to F's. She fell asleep in class daily. She flinched at loud noises. She never had lunch. I could hear her stomach growling. She had bruises she tried to hide. When I asked if she was okay, she'd go silent. What did you do? I filed 3 separate reports with school administration detailing my concerns. When nothing happened, I called Child Protective Services twice. They said they'd investigate, but I never saw any follow-up. Then Sienna stopped coming to school. The Vaughns submitted homeschool paperwork, and she disappeared. Why didn't you do more? I should have. God knows I should have. I should have shown up at the house. I should have called the police directly. I think about it every day. I failed her. Savannah was building not just a case against my parents, but against a system that failed at every level. By lunch recess, the jury looked ready to convict. But the hardest part was still coming. After lunch, Savannah stood. The prosecution calls Tyler Vaughn. I took the stand, was sworn in, sat down facing a courtroom full of strangers and the two people who'd raised me and destroyed my daughter. Mr. Vaughn, please tell the jury about your relationship with Sienna. So I did. I talked about Riley dying, about raising Sienna alone for 6 years, about the Germany opportunity, about trusting my parents to care for her. My voice broke multiple times. Why did you send money home? Because I love my daughter. Because I wanted her to have everything. Education, clothes, food, medical care, everything she needed and deserved. How much did you send? $2,500 a month. Every month for 48 months. $120,000 total. Did you ever suspect anything was wrong? Not at first. The video calls seemed normal for the first few months. But gradually, they became shorter, less frequent. Sienna looked different. Thinner, sadder, quieter. My mother always had excuses for why we couldn't talk more. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't push hard enough. I trusted them because they were family. Tell the jury what you found when you came home. I described that night in detail. The dark house, the sobbing, the basement, finding Sienna chained to the wall. Every word was agony. Several jurors were crying openly. What did you feel in that moment? Like I'd failed her. Like I'd left my daughter with monsters and called them family. Like I'd been working myself to death while she was dying and I didn't know. Like every instinct I'd ignored was screaming at me that I should have known sooner. Mr. Vaughn, do you blame yourself? Every single day, I should have come home to check on her. I should have demanded more video calls. I should have questioned the excuses. I should have trusted my instincts. I failed to protect her. But you did save her. Not soon enough. For years too late. Jackson Reed stood for cross-examination. Mr. Vaughn, you left your 6-year-old daughter for 4 years. Doesn't that make you partially responsible for what happened? I looked him in the eye. I left her with people I trusted. People who were supposed to be her family. I sent $120,000 for her care. I called regularly. I did everything a father could do from 3,000 miles away. They chose to torture her instead of caring for her. That's not on me. That's entirely on them. He had nothing else. Sat down. The afternoon stretched on. Financial experts testified about the money trail. Showed the jury how every transfer I made was followed immediately by luxury purchases. How my parents had been drowning in gambling debt and used Sienna's money to stay afloat while letting her starve. By the time court adjourned for the day, the case against my parents was overwhelming. But tomorrow was the day that mattered most. Tomorrow, Sienna would take the stand. That night, I tucked Sienna into bed in our apartment. Tomorrow, baby. Are you ready? I think so. I'm still scared. That's okay. Being scared means you're brave. Courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. Will you be proud of me even if I mess up? I'm already proud of you. So proud I could burst. Nothing you say or do tomorrow will change that. She hugged me tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in the world. The next morning, day 2 of the trial, the courthouse was even more packed. Word had spread that Sienna would testify. Savannah met us in the waiting room. Sienna, remember what we talked about. Just tell the truth in your own words. Look at the jury when you talk. It helps them connect with you. But if it's too hard, you can look at your dad or at me instead. Whatever makes you feel safe. Okay, you're very brave. What you're doing today is going to help a lot of people. At 10 a.m., we were called back into the courtroom. Judge Shin looked at Sienna with unusual gentleness. Prosecution, call your next witness. The prosecution calls Sienna Vaughn. I held Sienna's hand as we walked to the witness stand. She looked so small next to it. A bailiff brought a booster seat so she could reach the microphone. Judge Chin spoke gently. Sienna, do you understand you're here to tell the truth? Yes, ma'am. Her voice was tiny. And do you know the difference between truth and lies? Yes, ma'am. Good girl. I know this is hard, but all you have to do is answer the questions honestly. If you need a break at any time, just let me know. Okay. Okay. Sienna was sworn in. She sat in that big chair with a booster seat and looked at me. I smiled and nodded encouragement. Savannah approached slowly, her whole demeanor soft and non-threatening. Hi, Sienna. How old are you? 10. And you live with your daddy now? Yes. When your daddy left for Germany 4 years ago, who took care of you? Grandma and Grandpa. She refused to look at them. Was it nice at first? Yes. They were kind. They made me cookies and helped me with homework and read me stories. When did things change? Sienna's voice got quieter. After a few months, maybe 6 months or so, they started getting mad more. They yelled at me for little things. What kind of things? If I spilled something, or if I was too loud, or if I didn't clean something perfectly. What happened when you made mistakes? They yelled. Then they started hitting me. With their hands? No, with a belt. Grandpa's belt, or a wooden spoon. Things that hurt more. Where did they hit you? My back, my legs, sometimes my arms. Places that wouldn't show if I wore long sleeves. Did it hurt? Yes. Tears were streaming down Sienna's face, but she kept talking. The courtroom was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. When did they first put you in the basement? Sienna? I was 7. I broke a glass. It was an accident. I was trying to get water, and I dropped it. The glass broke, and Grandpa got so angry. He said I was clumsy and wasteful. He dragged me to the basement. What happened in the basement? He put a chain on my ankle. It was heavy and cold. He locked it with a padlock. Then he left me there. How long? I don't know. Days, I think. It was dark all the time, so I couldn't tell. Maybe 3 or 4 days. He brought me bread and water once a day. That's all. Did this happen more than once? Yes, lots of times. Whenever they went on trips or whenever I was really bad. What do you mean, when they went on trips? They'd go to Florida or other places. They'd lock me in the basement before they left. Sometimes for a week. They'd leave bread and bottles of water, but it was never enough. The jury looked horrified. Kennedy was sobbing at the defense table, head on her arms. Ethan stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Sienna, I know this is hard, but I need you to tell the jury about the food. What do they feed you? At first, regular food, but less and less. By the time I was 9, mostly just bread, sometimes peanut butter if I was good, water. That's mostly all. Were you hungry? All the time. My stomach hurt every day. I was always so hungry and thirsty. Did you tell anyone? No. They said if I told Daddy, they'd hurt me worse. They said Daddy didn't really love me anyway. That's why he left. They said if I told teachers or anyone, I'd be taken away and put somewhere even worse. What else did they tell you? That I was bad. That I deserved it. That I was ungrateful and spoiled. That I was a burden. That I wasn't really their family. She was crying harder now. Several jury members were openly weeping. Sienna, when you were in the basement, what was it like? Dark, cold, scary. The floor was hard and it hurt to lay on. Sometimes I heard rats. The chain was heavy and it cut my skin if I moved too much. I was always afraid. Every day, I was so afraid. What were you afraid of? That they'd forget about me. That I'd die down there and Daddy would never know what happened to me. That he'd think I ran away or stopped loving him. Did you think your daddy didn't love you? Sometimes. They told me that all the time. That he left because he didn't want me. That he was happy without me. I tried not to believe it, but after a while, I didn't know what to think. Sienna, when your daddy found you that night, what did you feel? Her face broke into the first genuine smile I'd seen in the courtroom. Happy. I was so happy. Because I knew he did love me. He came back. He saved me. One last question, sweetheart. If you could say anything to your grandparents right now, what would you say? Sienna finally looked at Ethan and Kennedy. For the first time since entering the courtroom, she looked directly at them. You hurt me every day. You made me think I was bad. You made me think Daddy didn't love me. But he does. He came back for me. And now I'm safe and you can't hurt me anymore. I hope you think about what you did every day for the rest of your lives. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Chun banged her gavel. Order. Order in this court. Savannah smiled. No further questions, Your Honor. Jackson Reed stood reluctantly for cross-examination. He approached Sienna like she might break. Sienna, I know this has been very hard for you. I only have a couple questions. Okay. Did you ever misbehave? Do things that made your grandparents angry? Sienna thought about it. Sometimes I spill things. I was clumsy. Sometimes I talked too much or forgot to do my chores perfectly. But I tried to be good. I tried so hard. And when you did those things, that's when they disciplined you. Sienna looked at him with those old, tired eyes. They chained me in the dark and didn't feed me for days. Is that discipline? Jackson Reed had no response. The question hung in the air. No further questions. He sat down quickly. Sienna stepped down from the stand. I met her at the gate and picked her up, held her tight. You were so brave, baby. So brave. Judge Chin called a recess. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes for closing arguments. In the hallway, Sienna collapsed against me, exhausted. Savannah knelt down beside her. You did amazingly. The jury heard you. They believe you. You were perfect. Can we go home after this? Soon, sweetheart. Just a little bit longer. When we returned, Savannah gave her closing argument. It was devastating. The evidence is overwhelming. The testimony is heartbreaking. The medical records are irrefutable. Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn took a father's love and turned it into chains. They took a child's trust and turned it into terror. They took $120,000 meant for their granddaughter's care and spent it on themselves while she starved in their basement. She walked toward the jury box. Sienna Vaughn was 6 years old when her father left her in what he believed were safe hands. She's 10 now. She spent 4 of the most formative years of her life being tortured by people who were supposed to love her. She was chained, starved, beaten, isolated, told she was worthless, made to believe her father had abandoned her. The defendants showed no mercy. They deserved none in return. They had every opportunity to stop, to change, to do the right thing. They chose cruelty every single day for years. They chose luxury over a child's welfare. They chose vacations over feeding her. They chose designer handbags over her safety. I'm asking you, members of the jury, to hold them accountable, to send a message that children are not property, that abuse of this magnitude will not be tolerated, that justice exists for the most vulnerable among us. Find them guilty on all counts. She sat down. Jackson Reed stood for his closing. He looked defeated before he even began. Members of the jury, my clients made terrible mistakes. They were overwhelmed. They're elderly. They didn't have the resources or support they needed to care for a child. Judge Chin interrupted. Mr. Reed, I warned you about this line of argument. Your Honor, I'm simply asking the jury to consider context. Context does not justify torture. Context does not justify chaining a child in a basement. If that's your entire defense, you're wasting this court's time. Jackson sat down. He tried. It was impossible to defend the indefensible. Judge Chun addressed the jury. You've heard the evidence. You've heard the testimony. You must now deliberate and reach a verdict. Remember, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. They must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Take all the time you need. The jury filed out, and we waited. Sienna sat beside me in the courtroom, holding my hand. We waited for 90 minutes. The shortest deliberation time for a case this serious anyone could remember. When the jury returned, every single member looked at Ethan and Kennedy with expressions of disgust. The foreman stood, an older man, maybe 60, with a weathered face. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the count of child abuse in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty, Kennedy wailed. A broken animal sound. On the count of unlawful imprisonment, how do you find? Guilty. Ethan's face was stone, but I saw his hand shaking. On the count of financial exploitation of a minor, how do you find? Guilty. On all additional counts? Guilty on all counts, Your Honor. The courtroom erupted. People cheering, crying, hugging. Judge Chin banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. I will have order in this courtroom. When the chaos settled, she addressed the defendants. Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. Until then, you will be remanded to custody without bail. Bailiffs removed them. Ethan was led away without a word. Kennedy collapsed and had to be carried out, still sobbing. The courtroom slowly emptied. Sienna looked up at me. Is it over? It's over, baby. They're going to prison. They can't hurt you anymore. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. The courtroom was packed again. Judge Chun asked if there were victim impact statements. I stood. Your Honor, for 4 years I trusted my parents with the most precious thing in my world. My daughter. I sent them $120,000, believing she was safe and loved and cared for. Instead, she was tortured. Every day while I built bridges in Germany, my daughter was chained in a basement. Starving, beaten, terrified. I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But they should carry the consequences. They showed no mercy. They deserve none. Savannah asked if Sienna wanted to speak. Sienna stood up. I held her hand as we walked forward together. She looked at Ethan and Kennedy. You hurt me every day for years. You made me think I was bad. You made me think Daddy didn't love me. But he does love me. He came back and saved me. Now I'm safe and healing, and you can't touch me ever again. I hope you remember what you did every single day you're in prison. I hope it hurts. She sat down. Judge Chun looked at Ethan and Kennedy with pure contempt. I've been a judge for 30 years. I presided over hundreds of cases. I've seen every kind of evil humanity is capable of. But what you did to this child ranks among the absolute worst. You were entrusted with her care. You were supposed to protect her, love her, keep her safe. Instead, you destroyed her for personal gain. You chained a 6-year-old child in a basement. You starved her, beat her, isolated her from the world. You spent money meant for her care on luxury items while she cried alone in the dark. The cruelty you inflicted is beyond comprehension. Ethan Vaughn, you were sentenced to 18 years in state prison. Kennedy Vaughn, you were sentenced to 12 years in state prison. Neither of you will be eligible for parole. In addition, you will pay restitution of $120,000 plus damages to be determined in civil court. Your assets will be seized to pay this debt. You will have no contact with the victim or her father for the duration of your lives. Take them away. Bailiffs led them out. This time, there was no scene, just acceptance. They were done. Outside the courthouse, Savannah pulled me aside. The house and all their assets will be liquidated. The proceeds will go into a trust fund for Sienna. It won't undo what happened, but it's something. Thank you for everything. You're welcome. Take care of that girl. She's been through hell, but she's a fighter. We drove home in silence. When we got to our apartment, Sienna finally spoke. It's really over now, right? It's really over. You're safe. We can start over. Build a new life. Just you and me. Just you and me, baby. But I couldn't shake Ethan's words from the arrest. You're not my son. You're no blood of mine. It haunted me. Was it just the rant of a corner man trying to hurt me? Or was there truth to it? 3 months after the trial, I got a letter from the prison. From Kennedy. I almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Tyler, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. But there are things you need to know. Things about who you really are. Please come see me. This is important. Kennedy. I showed the letter to Captain Blackwell, who I'd stayed in touch with. It's probably a manipulation tactic, trying to get sympathy or attention. Or it's the truth. I need to know. Then be careful. Don't trust anything she says without verification. 6 months after the trial, I arranged a visit to the women's correctional facility. I left Sienna with Dr. Harper, who had become like family to us. The prison was 2 hours north. Gray concrete, razor wire, guard towers. The visiting room was cold and sterile. Kennedy was brought in wearing a prison uniform. She'd aged dramatically. Hair completely gray, face lined with new wrinkles. She looked like she'd aged 20 years in 6 months. We sat across from each other, a thick glass partition between us. A guard stood nearby. Why did you want to see me? I asked. No greeting, no small talk. Because you deserve the truth about who you are. About why Ethan hated you so much. I'm your son. What else is there to know? She laughed. A bitter, broken sound. You're not my son, Tyler. You never were. We're not related by blood. My world tilted. What are you talking about? Your real name is Mason Hale. You were born in Pennsylvania to billionaire parents. Bryce and Lila Hale. Industrial magnates. Old money. Real power. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. You're lying. I wish I was. When you were 2 years old, there was a war. An inheritance war within the Hale family. 3 brothers fighting over control of a billion-dollar empire. People died, Tyler. Assassinations. Car accidents that weren't accidents. Buildings that exploded. Your real parents were terrified you'd be next. That you'd be killed to cut you out of the inheritance line. So they made a desperate decision. What decision? They paid us. Ethan and I were distant cousins of Lila's. Poor. Struggling. They gave us $500,000 cash to take you far away. Change your name. Raise you as our own. Keep you safe until the inheritance war ended. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. Why would you agree to that? Because $500,000 was more money than we'd ever seen. We thought it was temporary. They said the danger would pass in a year or 2. They promised to keep sending money, to eventually bring you home. But after the first year, the payments stopped. The phone numbers changed. Letters came back as address unknown. We were stuck with you. So you raised me. Ethan resented you from the start. Every day, you looked more like them. Sounded like them. Had their mannerisms. It was like raising someone else's child and being reminded of it constantly. When you had Sienna, it was even worse. He saw the Hale blood continuing. He wanted to destroy every trace of it. So he tortured my daughter because of some imagined grudge against a family she'd never met. Yes, I should have stopped him. I know I should have. But I was weak. I always was. Why are you telling me this now? Because you should know who you really are. Your parents searched for you for decades. Spent millions trying to find you. They never stopped looking. They probably think you're dead. She slid a piece of paper across the table. The guard inspected it first, then passed it to me. An address. That's the Hale estate in Pennsylvania. If you want answers, go there. Find out the truth. I took the paper and stood up. I hope those 12 years feel like an eternity. They already do. I left without another word. Sat in my car in the parking lot staring at the address. Mason Hale. Bryce and Lila Hale. Billionaires. An inheritance war. It sounded like fiction, but Kennedy had no reason to lie now. She had nothing to gain. I drove home. Told Sienna we were taking a trip. Where? Pennsylvania. To meet some people who might be family. Like grandparents? Maybe. We'll see. The next morning, we loaded the car. Drove east through Ohio into Pennsylvania. The address led us outside Pittsburgh to a private road with an electronic gate. Beyond it, I could see a tree-lined driveway disappearing into manicured grounds. I pressed the intercom button. Yes. A male voice. Professional. Guarded. My name is Tyler Vaughn. I think I might be Mason Hale. There was a long pause. Please wait. The gates swung open. We drove up the winding driveway through grounds that looked like a park. Perfectly trimmed hedges. Sculpted gardens. Ancient oak trees. The house at the end was a mansion. 3 stories of stone and columns. Architecture from another era. Bigger than any building I'd ever lived in. A woman and a man waited at the front entrance. The woman was in her mid-60s, elegant, silver hair pulled back, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car. The moment she saw me through the windshield, she gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. I got out of the car. Helped Sienna out. The woman was already running toward me. She threw her arms around me before I could speak. Mason. Oh my God. Mason, my baby, you're alive. She was sobbing, clinging to me like I might disappear. I stood there frozen while this stranger held me like I was the most precious thing in the world. The man approached more slowly. Tall, distinguished, silver hair, expensive suit. Bryce Hale. He studied my face with sharp, intelligent eyes. Eyes that were filling with tears despite his obvious effort to maintain composure. We need to be certain, he said, voice shaking slightly. Of course, I managed. The woman released me finally. Looked at Sienna. And who is this beautiful girl? My daughter. Sienna. Your daughter. Her voice broke again. My granddaughter. Oh God. She knelt down to Sienna's level. Hello, sweetheart. I'm Lila. Hi. Sienna whispered, hiding behind my leg. Come inside. Please. We have so much to talk about. The mansion interior was overwhelming. High ceilings. marble floors, paintings that looked like they belonged in museums. Staff in uniform moved quietly through hallways. We were led to a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, a fireplace crackling softly. Lila couldn't stop touching my face, looking at me like I might vanish. Bryce sat down heavily in a leather chair. "Tell us everything. How did you find us?" So I did. I told them about growing up as Tyler Vaughn, about Riley dying, about Germany, about Sienna, about the basement, about the trial, about Kennedy's confession in prison. They listened in stunned silence. When I finished, Lila was crying again. Bryce's jaw was clenched tight. "Those monsters," Bryce said quietly. "We paid them to protect you. We trusted them. Why did you give me away?" The question came out harsher than I intended. "To save your life," Lila said. "My brothers wanted control of Hale Industries, our family company. They were willing to kill for it. Your uncle David died in a car accident that wasn't an accident. My younger brother James was shot on the street. They made it look like a robbery, but we knew. You were 2 years old, innocent. We couldn't let you die because of adult greed. So you gave me to strangers, to family. Distant cousins, but family. We thought we could trust them. We gave them enough money to care for you comfortably. We sent more money every month for the first year. Then suddenly, all contact stopped. The phone numbers were disconnected. The address they'd given us turned out to be fake. Letters came back as undeliverable." Bryce leaned forward. "We hired private investigators, dozens of them over the years. Spent millions trying to find you. But Ethan and Kennedy had disappeared completely. Changed towns. Went off the grid. We assumed they'd taken the money and abandoned you somewhere. Or worse, that you were dead. I grew up in Ohio, in a normal house on a normal street. How could you not find me? They were smart. They used cash for everything. Didn't have social media. Unlisted phone numbers. And they changed your name legally from Mason Hale to Tyler Vaughn. The paper trail went cold. And the inheritance war ended 20 years ago. My brothers are gone now, dead or in prison for their crimes. The company is stable, safe, has been for decades. We never stopped looking for you, Mason. Never stopped hoping. My name is Tyler. Of course. I'm sorry. Tyler." He paused. "But you are Mason Hale. You're our son, and we'd like to know you, if you'll let us. I need proof. DNA tests. Documentation. I can't just believe this." "Absolutely. We insist on it." Bryce pulled out his phone and made a call. Within an hour, medical staff arrived at the mansion. DNA samples were taken from me, from Sienna, from Bryce and Lila. Our family maintains relationships with several private genetics laboratories. Bryce explained. We can have results within 3 days. We stayed at the estate while we waited. It was surreal, living in a mansion, being waited on by staff. Lila couldn't stop showing me photo albums. Baby pictures I'd never seen. Videos of me as a toddler that I had no memory of. "You loved building blocks," she said, pointing to a video of 2-year-old me stacking towers. "You'd spend hours building things. Even then, you were an engineer. I build bridges now, for a living." Her face lit up. "That's perfect." The Hale family made its fortune in infrastructure. Roads, bridges, buildings. It's in your blood. 3 days later, we sat in that same library while a lawyer read the results. The DNA analysis confirms that Tyler Vaughn is biologically Mason Hale, son of Bryce and Lila Hale. Additionally, Sienna Vaughn is the biological granddaughter of Bryce and Lila Hale. The match is 99.9% certain. Lila collapsed into a chair, weeping with joy. Bryce sat down heavily, his composure finally breaking completely. Tears streamed down his face. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Anger? Confusion? All of it at once. Lila pulled me into another crushing hug. "My son, my boy, we found you. After 36 years, we found you." Bryce joined the embrace. For the first time in my life, I was being hugged by my real parents. Sienna watched with wide eyes. Lila noticed and pulled back. "Come here, sweetheart." She held out her arms to Sienna. Sienna looked at me. I nodded. She walked into Lila's arms carefully. "You're my real grandma?" "I am. And I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again. You're safe now. Both of you." Over the next few weeks, We visited the estate regularly. Lila spoiled Sienna outrageously. Toys, books, new clothes, an entire playroom set up just for her. But more than the material things, she gave Sienna something more valuable. Unconditional love, patience, kindness, everything grandparents should be. Bryce was more reserved, but no less caring. He'd take long walks with me around the grounds, telling stories about the Hale family history, about the business, about their decades-long search for me. "I'd like you to be part of the company," he said one afternoon. "If you're interested, I don't know anything about running a business. You're an engineer. You understand infrastructure, complex systems, project management. That's what we do. The business side can be learned. But the fundamental understanding, the ability to see how pieces fit together, that's innate. You have it. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. There's no pressure. We just got you back. I'm not going to push you into anything." But the more I learned about Hale Industries, the more interested I became. They did exactly what I'd been doing in Germany. Infrastructure projects, bridges, roads, water systems, but on a much larger scale. I accepted a position, Vice President of Infrastructure Development. It sounded impressive, but Bryce made clear I'd have to prove myself like anyone else. "You're my son, but that doesn't mean automatic success. You'll start at the bottom of leadership and work your way up. Earn the respect of the board and the employees." I wouldn't want it any other way. I threw myself into the work, used everything I'd learned in Germany, led projects with precision and care, built relationships with contractors and engineers, proved I wasn't just some long-lost heir playing businessman. In the first year, I led 3 major projects: a bridge in West Virginia, a highway expansion in Virginia, a water treatment facility in Maryland. All came in under budget and ahead of schedule. Profit to my division increased 38%. The whispers about nepotism stopped. People started respecting me for my work, not my name. By the second year, Bryce started stepping back from daily operations. He was 70 now, tired. He'd spent decades running the company while searching for me. Now he wanted to rest. "The board respects you," he told me one evening. "They trust your judgment. I'm going to recommend you as my successor." "Bryce, I've only been here 2 years. There are people who've been with the company for decades, and most of them lack vision. They're good at maintaining what exists, but not at building something new. You have vision, fresh eyes, the ability to see possibilities others miss. That's what this company needs. I don't know if I'm ready. No one ever is. But you'll learn, and I'll be here to help." 6 months later, at a board meeting I'll never forget, Bryce made the announcement. "I'm retiring as CEO of Hale Industries. I'm recommending Tyler Vaughn, also known as Mason Hale, as my successor. He's proven himself over the past 2.5 years. He's earned this position through merit, not just blood." There was some resistance. A few board members who thought I was too young, too inexperienced. But Bryce had allies, people who'd worked with me and saw my capabilities. The vote was close, but I won. Tyler Vaughn, the construction worker from Ohio who'd spent 4 years building bridges in Germany, was now CEO of a billion-dollar corporation. The media coverage was intense. Long-lost heir takes control of Hale Industries. Forbes ran a profile. Business journals analyzed my background. But I didn't let it go to my head. I kept working, kept proving myself, kept building. In my first year as CEO, company profits increased 18%. We expanded into sustainable infrastructure, green buildings, solar-powered facilities, technology-integrated smart cities. The company thrived under new direction. But more importantly, Sienna thrived. She was 12 now, healthy, happy, still in therapy, but healing. The nightmares came less frequently. The fear responses diminished. She'd started at a new school where no one knew her story, made real friends for the first time, joined the art club, started smiling without being prompted. Lila and Bryce were everything grandparents should be: patient, loving, present. They attended every school play, every art show, every therapy milestone. Sienna called them Grandma and Grandpa, without hesitation. One evening, I stood on the balcony of the mansion. We'd moved into a renovated guest house on the estate grounds, close enough to family, but independent. Our own space. I watched Sienna in the garden below with Lila. They were planting flowers, laughing. The sunset painted everything gold. Sienna threw dirt at Lila playfully. Lila gasped in mock horror and retaliated. They both dissolved into giggles. Bryce joined me on the balcony. She's healing, slowly but surely. You both are. Some days are harder than others. Some nights, she still wakes up screaming. But we're getting there. You did well, Tyler. You saved her. You got justice. You gave her a new life. That takes strength most people don't have. I failed her first. If I'd paid more attention, if I'd come home sooner, stop. You trusted family. That's not failure. What happened after is what matters. You fought for her. You didn't give up. You got her out of hell and gave her a future. I watched my daughter laugh in the fading light. I just want her to be happy. She is. Look at her. That night, I tucked Sienna into bed in her room. Her real room. Painted yellow like sunshine. Filled with books and art supplies and everything a 12-year-old girl could want. Dad. Yeah, baby. Do you ever think about them? Grandma Kennedy and Grandpa Ethan. Sometimes. Do you? Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if they think about me. If they're sorry. I don't know if they're capable of that kind of reflection. But it doesn't matter anymore. They can't hurt you. We're safe. We have a real family now. I like Grandma Lila and Grandpa Bryce. They're nice. They love you very much. I love them too. And Dad. Yeah. I'm glad you're my dad. Even if your real name is Mason. You'll always be Dad to me. And you'll always be my whole world. She fell asleep holding my hand. I sat there watching her breathe. Remembering the night I found her in that basement. The terror. The rage. The guilt. But also remembering this. The peace. The safety. The healing. 1 year later, I received a call from the prison. Ethan had died. Heart attack. He was 70 years old. Prison had been hard on him. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No grief. Just emptiness. He was gone. Good. Kennedy would serve the rest of her sentence alone. That felt appropriate somehow. 2 more years passed. Sienna was 14 now. Thriving. She'd started high school. Joined the debate team. Was considering colleges already, even though she had years to go. The nightmares were rare now. Maybe once every few months. She could talk about what happened without breaking down. Dr. Harper said it was remarkable progress. One evening, Sienna came to me with a question. Dad, I'm doing a project for English class. About identity. About what makes us who we are. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think of yourself as Tyler or Mason? I thought about it. Both. And neither. Tyler Vaughn is the name I grew up with. The person I became despite everything. Mason Hale is who I was born as. The heritage I've reclaimed. But really, I'm just Dad. That's the identity that matters most. I'm doing my project on you. On how someone can lose their identity and find it again. How they can be broken and put themselves back together. Is that okay? I'd be honored. She worked on that project for weeks. Interviewed me, Lila, Bryce, even Captain Blackwell, and Dr. Harper. When she presented it to her class, her teacher called me. Mr. Vaughn, your daughter's project was extraordinary. She showed a level of insight and emotional intelligence far beyond her years. You should be very proud. I am. Every single day. 3 more years passed. Sienna graduated high school with honors. Got accepted to Stanford, MIT, Yale. She chose Stanford. I want to study psychology, she said. I want to help kids like me. Kids who've been through trauma. I want to give them hope. Your mother would be so proud. I'm so proud. I know. And Dad, thank you for saving me. For never giving up. For fighting for me, even when I thought no one cared. Always, baby. Always. The day I moved Sienna into her Stanford dorm room, I cried. Lila and Bryce came too. We spent the day setting up her room, meeting her roommate, walking around campus. As we were leaving, Sienna hugged each of us. I love you guys. All of you. Thank you for giving me a real family. On the drive back to Pennsylvania, Lila said, we found you at 38 years old. We got 20 years with you. I wish we'd had the first 38 too, but I'm grateful for what we have. Me too, I said quietly. That night, I sat in my office at Hale Industries. CEO for 5 years now. The company was thriving. My daughter was thriving. My real parents were in my life. Everything had worked out in ways I couldn't have imagined. That terrible night, I found Sienna in the basement. But I still carried the weight, the guilt, the what-ifs. What if I'd never gone to Germany? What if I'd come home sooner? What if I questioned my parents' excuses harder? Dr. Harper's words came back to me. Words she'd said years ago during a family therapy session. Guilt is natural, but it's not productive. You can't change the past. You can only learn from it and do better in the future. You did that. You saved her. You got justice. You gave her a life worth living. That's what matters. I pulled up a photo on my phone. Sienna at 18, standing in front of Stanford's gates. Smiling. Healthy. Happy. Free. My name was Tyler Vaughn. Then I learned I was Mason Hale. But really, I'm just a father. A father who failed once, but fought to make it right. A father who learned that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, by action, by showing up when it matters most. Ethan and Kennedy Vaughn were blood. They nearly destroyed us. Bryce and Lila Hale were strangers. They saved us. I learned that blind trust can be deadly. That gut instincts matter. That children's voices must be heard. That neighbors who do nothing are complicit in evil. That systems designed to protect kids often fail them. But I also learned that healing is possible. That justice exists. That people can survive hell and come out stronger. That love is more powerful than cruelty. That redemption is real. I shut down my computer, walked out to my car, drove home to the estate. Lila and Bryce were in the garden. I joined them. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Pennsylvania hills. My daughter was at Stanford building her future. My real parents were beside me after decades apart. My career was successful beyond anything I'd imagined. We'd been through hell, all of us, but we'd made it to the other side, together. And that's all that really matters. If you found this story powerful, please like this video and subscribe to the Payback Chronicles for more incredible revenge stories where justice always prevails. Drop a comment below telling me, what would you have done in Tyler's situation? Would you have trusted your parents? Would you have come home sooner? Let me know your thoughts. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story about people who fought back and won. Remember, trust must be earned, not assumed. Verify what matters most. And never ignore your instincts when someone you love might be in danger. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay strong, and never stop fighting for those who can't fight for themselves.